I shall now make a statement in my capacity as a representative of the Russian Federation. We listened very carefully to the briefings by Martin Griffiths and Filippo Grandi. The situation in Ukraine is, of course, the kind of situation that gives rise to most serious concern amongst all of us. We can see that the ordinary people are suffering. The people who basically ended up being hostages held by the Ukrainian radicals and nationalists who are clinging to power at any price. Now, why am I saying this? Because in those territories which came under the Russian armed forces control, the people are not encountering acute humanitarian issues. The local authorities, after the radicals have left, are working normally and providing all the necessary services to the people. The life-providing services to the people are functioning. The acute issues are only remain in those towns where the Ukrainian authorities issued a criminal and responsible order to distribute arms to anyone who wants it, including criminals, the criminals who were let out of prisons for that specific purpose. And this resulted in mass instances of robberies and killings and looting. There's plenty of information about that in social networks. The social networks also have appeals from a number of heads of administrations calling on the Ukrainian authorities to stop this madness. We also note that there is many instances where later on the victims of the looters and gangsters are shamelessly presented as having perished at the hands of the so-called Russian infiltrators. We address the people in Kiev, held by the radicals in the city as a human shield. The Russian Ministry of Defense confirms that all those peaceful citizens of Kiev can leave the capital of Ukraine without hindrance via the road Kiev-Vasylkov. This road is open and safe. Let me repeat it once again, that the special military operation conducted by the Russian armed forces does not have the goal of occupying Ukraine or harming the local population. Demilitarizing the country, which is crammed with NATO weaponry, is aimed at protecting the long-suffering people in Donbass and Ukraine. The special operation conducted by Russia does not impact critical civilian infrastructure. Over the 5 days of the operation, there hasn't been a single documented case of targeted destruction or no evidence of the death of civilians caused by the Russian military. And we're constantly being told the opposite, referring to some kind of credible reports, despite the fact that currently in the information area there is a huge number of fakes, the kinds of fakes that people are trying to place on us, the blame for what is being done by Ukraine itself. And this tide of dirty lies replicated in Western mass media, unfortunately, very unfortunately, have become a dangerous mark of our times. Today, at this meeting of Security Council, once again we heard about the bombings of residential areas, hospitals, schools, and kindergartens. It is reliably known that the Ukrainian radicals are placing their attack weaponry in residential areas, which is a direct violation of international humanitarian law. We would ask Martin Griffiths and Filippo Grandi to please comment what I've just said. Everyone knows very well that starting in 2014, Russia and Russia alone basically extended assistance to the peaceful people in Donbass who were encountering relentless shelling by the Ukrainian army and the blockade by Kiev. We already had several meetings of the Security Council where we explained this approach of ours, and I'm not going to repeat this. I will simply say that we deeply regret the fact that even today, when we're discussing the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, not a single Western colleague mentioned the citizens of Donbass, whose suffering for 8 years you've tried not to notice. A very important measure of supporting the people of Donbass was a decree issued by the President of Russia, Mr. Putin, in 2019, entitled On Defining for Humanitarian Purposes the Categories of People Having the Right to Apply for Russian Federation Citizenship under a Simplified Procedure. At the time when the people in southeast of Ukraine were basically pushed to the brink of survival by the criminal authorities in Kiev, who organized a socio-economic blockade of Donbass. In this situation, providing them the Russian citizenship allow them to receive social allowances, pensions, salary, as well as education and healthcare services. Currently, in Russia, we have more than 110,000 refugees from Donbass. They had to leave their homes after an event a week ago when Kiev tried to yet once again resolve the Donbass issue militarily in violation of the Minsk package of measures. And the blame for this situation also belongs with our Western partners, who openly indulged Kiev in Kiev's rejection of Minsk and pumped the country full of weapons. Overall, according to the information we have, since the beginning of conflict in 2014, about 3 million Ukrainian citizens left for Russia. In conclusion, I would like to underscore yet once again that Russia did not start the war, that Russia is trying to end it. The Ukraine started the war in 2014, except that all these years you tried not to notice it. It was very odd for us to hear from the representative of France that the European sanctions on Russia do not violate international humanitarian law or the interests of the ordinary people in Russia. These duplicitous statements are something that we heard before in the context of other countries' situations. As regards the draft proposed by France and Mexico on humanitarian situation in Ukraine, we need to study the text very carefully before issuing any assessment thereof. In any event, please know that the Russian military will provide any needed humanitarian assistance to the Ukrainians in the territories